We were supposed to do the mic check.
We were supposed to do the mic check. We're doing a post-show mic check.
Post-show.
Let's make sure that all our voices are being heard.
Doing this in the wrong order.
Yes.
Mic check?
That's what it is.
Is this a mic check?
It should be a check mic because it's reverse.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Can we spell this back?
Or is it a mic uncheck? Hello and welcome to another episode of Embassy Exclusive. This is a monthly supplemental show for fans of the VGMbassy Game Music Podcast. I'm Ed.
I'm Todd.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Mila.
And each month we get together and share video game music, the latest news in gaming, and our completely independent opinions on both. This is episode 47 for July 2023. I hope you all enjoy it. Completely independent because we are recording on Independence Day. Quite an early recording for the month, but that's because of a specific reason. Todd is joining us for the show. I'm just kidding.
Actually, it's more that Joe is not.
Yeah, Joe is not here. Sadly, he will be missed. It was just really, really difficult to kind of coordinate because it's a holiday, because Chris is up from Maryland, and we wanted to definitely get him on the show while he was here. So welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Tough shoes to fill, but we'll see. I'm sure we'll deliver.
I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun. Great to see you here. You're up here with your family for a short little vacation.
Yep.
You know, obviously we're recording early in the month, so this will be released around the normal time at the end of the month. So if we are talking about any sort of current topics, it might not be completely up to date. There will be a couple weeks delay there. But I think a lot of our topics today aren't necessarily timely. I think they just talk about our opinions on concepts in gaming and stuff like that. There hasn't been a lot of time between our recordings. This is the part of the show where we usually talk about what we've been playing, etc., etc. Any update from you, Todd?
I'm towards the end, but still basically only playing Final Fantasy 16. I'm pretty close to the end at this point, I believe, from how the story is kind of playing out. I'm trying not to look at trophy lists or anything like that to sort of gauge how close I actually am. But given the amount of time that I've played and how the story seems to be unfolding, I think I'm pretty close to the end.
Cool.
But it's only been, a week and a half since we last recorded, something like that.
So you haven't really even been playing the game for that long then? So
about 2 weeks in total. Yeah, I had a couple days in it when we last recorded.
So how many hours would you say you're into it?
I don't know. That's one of the weird things that Final Fantasy 16 does not do that previous Final Fantasies historically have done, and that is give you an in-game timer. And
the PS5 doesn't have a timer like Steam does?
It may, but I haven't checked it.
I think you have to drill in. It's not as obvious as a Switch.
Yeah, it doesn't say Final Fantasy 16. You've been playing this many hours, right on the front. If it has one, I'm not familiar with where it is. But I would guess to say I'm probably 50 hours in.
It's cool.
In that neighborhood.
Okay. 50, 60 hours for an RPG is standard.
I read somewhere that Square said the story is about 60 hours, so that sounds about right.
Are you going through straight through the main story, or are there side quests?
Well, there's tons of side quests, and I'm doing them all. I'm very much enjoying the game. Recent Final Fantasies have kind of landed flat on a lot of people, and I'm hoping that this one kind of revives the fandom because I think it has hit some marks that Final Fantasy hasn't hit in a while.
Cool. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about it. Are you playing, Chris?
No, it's on the list, but I just finished Tears of the Kingdom, and then I picked up Diablo 4 right away. I'm nervous about getting to Final Fantasy 16 because Trails into Reverie comes out, which is the next Trails.
So which
game.
time sync are you going to sync time into?
Yeah, exactly. I'm behind on a couple of older Trails games, but I feel like I'm just going to put everything down and jump right into Trails into Reverie, which is the next. It's the one right after Trails of Cold Steel and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, I will say, and I think I mentioned this to Joe in the last recording. Try to avoid spoilers. Even the demo has a big storyline reveal that you probably don't want to know before you actually experience it yourself.
Yeah, good to know.
Cool. And the Pikmin 4 demo just came out.
Oh, did it?
Too. So I got to check that out. It's a prologue, but the prologue also appears in the game. But if you get through the full demo, then it will create a save spot so that you don't have to go through the same thing in the actual retail game when it comes out. So it's kind of worth checking it out if you want. So I'll probably do that eventually. Did you ever play Pikmin, Mila?
I played some of it. There was a part where I got to that I don't think I continued because it made me very angry, as most Nintendo games tend to do to me. It's very fun and very easy, and then suddenly it is not.
I think you and Logan would probably dig it. And there was a time limit on the first game, right? There was like you had to do it within 30 game days or something like that, and that frustrated a lot of people. But they removed it they just released remakes of 1 and 2 on the Switch, and they removed that time limit, so you kind of like can take your time and get through the game, which is cool.
Oh, that sounds much more enjoyable to me. I don't love being
And you just hang out and wait till you have enough Pikmin to do your
all.
stuff. I'm the same way, like even Dead Rising. Like I love that game, but the fact that you have to do it within a certain amount of time just kills me. I want to take my time and just smash as many zombies as I can, get some weird weapons, put a friggin' helmet on my head and go crazy, but there's always this kind of like timer counting down, and it really draws the fun away. So, and that's why I like Breath of the Wild and stuff like that so much. You can take your time, do whatever you want when you're ready, go ahead and finish it. You know, Grand Theft Auto is the same way, and one of the reasons I love those games.
Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom for me, I rolled credits probably earlier than I imagined I would have. I was like 80 hours in, but it hasn't been out that long.
Yeah.
And it just felt, I really just sort of immersed myself in the role play, and I was like, I happened to be basically looking over where you have to go, and I'm like, he's ready. It's time to go. And so I just went, and I just did it.
After 80 hours, how much... I know it's really hard to gauge, but would you say that you have done most of the things in the game?
So I did like 120 shrines. I think there's a few more than that. I am not a completionist. There's 1,000 Koroks in this one. There were 900 in the last one. I probably only have like 200 Koroks. There's an unreasonable amount of armor. My one complaint is, which I think I've heard other people talk about, is there's basically too many currencies. It's like rupees and food and this, and then upgrade materials and then this other shit. And I'm like, okay, there's just like too much to sort of trade and do. So I got a couple sort of like armor pieces upgraded all the way. I found like a few weapon combos and fuses that I really liked, and I was like, all right, this will get me through.
Yeah, I think Joe referred to it as a million bits and bobs last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets a little overwhelming. I don't know. So what you been playing, Marla?
I was playing We Bare Bears on mobile.
Oh, yeah. There's a saga to this one.
Because I'm cheesy and play puzzle games, much like you do.
Mm-hmm. Is this Mila's SnowRunner?
This is...
Yeah,
kind
I
of.
would say so.
Apparently, something happened to the game and it broke, and I had all of my stuff saved on Facebook, and the link broke, and then it didn't work anymore for weeks and weeks, and I was like, what's going on here? So I contacted them, and they were like, okay, we're working on it. And I was like, okay, that's fantastic. But I was at like almost level 1500, and I was very disappointed that I couldn't play my game. And then it still wasn't working, and I contacted them again and was like, what's going on here?
So you thought, so the company got bought?
I'm assuming that the company got
changed
bought.
their infrastructure somehow?
Because when I went to look them up, like the manufacturer, maker, owner, whatever, the game was no longer on that website. It was just a bunch of anime games, which, cool, great. But the Bear game was not on their site. So I went through everything on their game itself, on the app itself, and finally found this thing to contact them, emailed them, and they finally got back to me a few days later, and eventually they emailed me, and I finally, just yesterday, was able to get back on with all my save information.
Hooray!
And I am very excited. I was like, woo, we're back! Sent a screenshot to Ed and everything. I was like, I can't believe it's been almost a month since I've been able to play my favorite game.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And it might not have been fixed if it weren't for you.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I don't know. Maybe. I hope.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Bear
seemed like-
super fan.
I know. It's just such a cute and easy, just matching game.
Yeah. And you were playing a lot of Minecraft Dungeons with Logan, too.
I am playing Minecraft Dungeons with Logan. It's just a fun hack and slash. We try to beat fun little mobs, and we just have a lot of fun doing that. I wish that Logan would come down here and talk about it with us, but they're very busy playing
Whatever they're playing.
Roblox.
It's a full-time job, man.
Yeah.
I feel like it might be. Roblox is very important.
Two 12-year-olds, anyway.
To 12-year-olds, 7 through 12-year-olds, I suppose it's very important to them. But yeah, that's really fun. It's just fun to go through the levels and stuff. Get armor and
Yeah.
weapons,
You guys are always hooting and
upgrade.
hollering when you play it, so it sounds like you're having a good time.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And then you guys were playing, what, Snipper Clips for a bit.
We were playing
too.
Snipper Clips. That is really fun. It makes us laugh a whole lot. Your kids would probably
Yeah.
really love Snipper Clips if they haven't played. Minecraft Dungeons is fun too. It's probably about the 6-year-old age.
Yeah, they're my oldest is about ready to like start to play games.
Yeah.
He like can pay more attention. I've been letting him play the 3DS. He's been playing new Super Mario Bros. Because the platforming
yeah.
is easy, right? But,
Right.
like if he dies a bunch, it gives him like a invincibility Tanuki suit.
Right.
So he can just like get through the level. It's great.
That's cool. Yeah, so Snipper Clips was like a launch title, so it's been around for
It's been around for
quite
a really
while.
long time.
Yeah.
And there's some fairly simple levels in the beginning. I think it says for ages 5+.
Yeah.
So it's really easy.
Cool. Hasn't been that long since we recorded, but I did mention that game, The Bookwalker, when we last talked, and I've gotten more. Well, at that point, I had downloaded it, really liked what I saw in the trailer, but hadn't played it yet. So now I'm probably about 10, 12 hours into it, and it's really, really good. I'd gotten it backwards when we talked on the show. I said that because you can dive into books and you can also kind of interact with things in quote-unquote real life of your character, and I thought that the book segments were first person and real life was isometric, but I actually got that backwards. So the first person mode is all just basically your apartment building. It's like your apartment and then a couple of floors, but you're tasked with diving into books and kind of experiencing the story of the book in like a visual novel / light RPG kind of play, and you're supposed to find an object in the book and bring it out. You're trying to like work off this sentence for this crime that you committed that you don't know what it is yet. I'm sure it'll come to light eventually. It's cool. There have been like different genres of books that you go into. It's like one was like a film noir, another one's kind of like sci-fi on like a snowy planet. The one I'm in now is kind of like Hogwarts mixed with a little bit of sci-fi. They're pretty cool. Kind of like light crafting. You pick up things so you can create like a lockpick and a crowbar. For each book that you go into, you can create just a certain amount of static items, and they will help you get into drawers and find stuff that you might not normally find if you haven't unlocked that item yet. So I don't know, it's been fun. The writing is really good. There's a lot of dialogue, and for being in books, that was what I was hoping, is that if we're talking about literature here, I'm hoping these characters are kind of fleshed out, kind of like have their own voices. So it's all been really well written stuff. So it's a good read as well as like a good play. So if you're looking for a quick indie game, probably gonna be like 30 hours maximum.
Cool.
Probably worth checking out. It's a lot of fun. Not a really good soundtrack. It's just kind of really ambient stuff. I was hoping there'd be some cool tunes that I could like share on the show or something, but haven't heard anything yet. But maybe there will be some stuff coming up. I don't know. But take that as an Ed recommendation. One other thing that I wanted to chat about before we started into our topics is there's an unofficial announcement of the Switch 2. They're saying that Switch 2 dev kits have gotten into the hands of developers, and Milana, you were chatting a little bit about what the Switch 2 might be like. How are they going to compete against the Steam Deck? Like, do you guys have any ideas or what you would want in it might not even be called the Switch 2, but in some sort of a follow-up to the Switch? Like, where do they go from here?
I don't think Nintendo can get away from the portable and console in one thing. I think that might be where they're stuck, at least for now. So I suspect it's going to be something like that, maybe just a more powerful Switch. We discussed this on a previous episode of this show. We were musing about what the eventual Switch 2 might be like.
Yeah.
It was a couple of years ago now.
I think it was around the announcement of the Steam Deck, and we were kind of comparing
maybe that's
it
what
to
it was, right? And we were kind of trying to decide how that might compete with Nintendo, or whether Nintendo could compete with something like that. I still think that they're different markets, but that's besides the point. I don't think that Nintendo can really get away from having a handheld thing that you can also plug into a TV. However that ends up working.
I see all over the place people posting, since I got my Steam Deck, I haven't picked up my Switch. So I don't think they're not competing anymore. I think they're really in the same gaming space now. Even Joe, when he got his Steam Deck, he was like, I don't use my Switch nearly as much as I used to. So I think there's some competition that Nintendo is going to have to try to eat up there.
You have said that you can play Switch games on the Steam Deck, right?
You can emulate them.
So it's kind of...
to varying effect.
Oh, so it's not like perfect emulation.
Depends on the game.
Or
like you could play like, so they'll like attune the emulator specifically. So you could play like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Steam Deck, like full speed, almost feels like you're playing on a Switch. But some of the like shovelware games or third-party titles, it's not optimized for that, so they don't work as well.
Right.
So, but for the games that I guess quote unquote matter to most of the Nintendo fans, you're going to get a better experience with them.
I haven't PC gamed in like 20 years, right? And I got a Steam Deck because I was sort of like, man, the barrier to entry to getting a PC and like just seems too high.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm, you know, so the Steam Deck for me, it's just pick up. It's like, I know it's not compatible with everything. If I were truly going to get into PC gaming, it would be for like, and I were going to play some of these higher end graphical things. Like I could see the Steam Deck being not as important for those people, but that's not what I play.
Right.
And so it does feel like a Switch alternative for a bunch of like more games that feel more independent, that feel different than Nintendo. But I agree that like Nintendo, I can't imagine it gets away from effectively the same sort of like form factor and sort of portable and plug-in, because that, I mean, they've like nailed it. It's so...
Yeah. I think they're going to have to kind of get quirky with it again. I think if they end up with some sort of a LiDAR scan and a high power, maybe dual camera on the back, and start doing some like augmented reality stuff. So you just, you know, point the Switch 2 in your bedroom or whatever, and then you got Mario jumping across your couch and stuff. Like, that stuff could be fun. I don't know how well
I feel
it would.
like they did that. They tried to do that already with some of the Mario games, and that really failed.
And Labo.
They tried that with 3DS, and I don't think
right,
it really
that's right,
ever
the
went
3DS.
anywhere.
But that camera sucked.
The camera
camera
sucks.
did
It's
suck.
true. It's true. But you know, when 3DS came out, there was a couple of demos or whatever that made use of it.
Yeah.
And it was fun for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and
Remember
then,
they had that with the PlayStation 2? They had the little iPad.
Oh yeah, the iPad was cool. And then they had those books that you could open, and there was like the Harry Potter book that had interactive
The
elements.
spells
It used the PlayStation camera, PlayStation
Yeah.
Eye or whatever the heck they called it. So they've done stuff like that before.
They have.
But I don't know.
It's been years.
The
But
Steam Deck to Switch feels like a more direct competitor. It just doesn't
Yeah.
feel like Nintendo is trying to compete with Sony or Microsoft on AAA games. I
Right.
mean, even like, so I play like FIFA, which I hate, but I play every year.
That's
but
Electronic Arts for you.
But like the Switch version is called FIFA Legacy because it can't handle even the new version of FIFA. And
Right.
I'm just like,
right.
no, I don't think you have a lot of, like, you have parents who I think aren't really like connected in the video game world that think that they're like highly competitive, and it's like, we got to choose between this and this. I'm like, they're just different.
Yeah.
Like they're not. And so the Steam Deck, I think, will be good to force some competition from Nintendo to be like, that thing is more powerful. Like I mean, even Tears of the Kingdom, if I play it, I go too fast, it's like it loses a frame, stops for a second, and I'm like, okay, you got to give us more.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardware wasn't great when the Switch came out, and that was what, 6-7 years ago now,
Right.
8 years. I don't even remember, but in that neighborhood. So it's definitely feeling its age now.
For sure.
Right, and like the second Hyrule Warriors that came out, Age of Calamity, like I can't play it. I cannot. I'm so used to having a decent gaming PC with 164 hertz refresh, where I cannot go down to 15 to 10 frames per second. It just feels like I'm watching a strobe light, and I want to play that game so badly.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for like patches on emulators to come out that'll at least up it to 60 frames per second, but I
Yeah.
can't adjust my
Dungeons.
eyes to that.
Minecraft Dungeons absolutely frame rate bogs on
That
us all
chugs
the
along
time.
now because that's
Oh, yeah.
technically a PC game too, ported to the Switch. So.
It's ported over, yeah. And it bogs out and it'll freeze up on us, and sometimes it completely crashes. And we're like, oh my god, we were literally in the middle. We were almost to the end, and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe we just wasted all that time grinding for 25
Yeah.
minutes, and now we got to turn it off, and we got
I tried to
nothing
play The
from
Witcher
it.
3 on the Switch, and I was like, man, I could like go make a sandwich by the time this thing loads
Literally.
a save
Yep,
file.
yep.
I'm like, it's painful.
Pain in the butt.
I was
Yeah.
reading a discussion on the topic of the Switch 2 when I posted that link on the Discord. I don't know if that's the one you're referring to, but somebody was saying that they thought a good thing that the Switch 2 could do is be backwards compatible with Switch games.
Oh,
like
sure.
have an actual slot for
I think that would be
for the
a
cards,
necessity.
Yeah.
but run them at a higher clock speed, not like emulate or downclock itself to Switch hardware, but
agree.
run the Switch games faster, which would address the problem that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and it can be
I think
done.
that's
The
a great idea.
emulators prove that you can double the frame rate and still have a stable game.
Right.
So if Nintendo tries to get away without doing that, I think that they're BSing their consumers for sure. At least some sort of enhancement. Maybe not going, full on doubling frame rate, but
maybe a faster
it up a
bus. So
little
some of
bit.
those really like slow loading games,
exactly.
like The Witcher, would
I had
load
made
faster.
mention of Animal Crossing, and I'm like, they could do so much more with DLC, and they've chosen not to with a lot of their games that they could continue. Like all of the stuff with GTA. GTA 5 has been around for what now? 15 years? And I know they have a robust online community, but so does Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing could go on forever.
Yeah, right.
And they could
and
continue
Rockstar
making-
keeps pumping out new GTA stuff,
Yeah.
but Nintendo doesn't do anything for
And
Animal
Nintendo
Crossing
doesn't
anymore.
do anything for Animal Crossing. There's nothing left to do in that game. And they could continue making so much money. And I'm like, all right, well, I've done everything in this game now. I guess I'll never use it again.
Well, even Tears of the Kingdom people joked like this is basically like a fully loaded Breath of the Wild DLC, and I was like, I don't hate that at all.
No.
I'm like, you're gonna give me another 80-hour adventure in the same world?
That doesn't bother
Fine.
me.
I'm like, look, do I want to pay slightly more than any other Switch game? No, but I did it, and it was awesome.
I will say, to Nintendo's credit, the little of Breath of the Wild that I played is once the game initially loads, when you die or something and it has to reload, it does it very fast. Like they somehow managed to keep the bulk of the game in memory and only reload whatever assets needed to be reloaded to start from your save after you die or whatever happens. They did that very well.
Well, and you fast travel everywhere, but you can see as far as he could see, and you could go all the way there, and it would never load anything. I mean, it's a pretty
Breath of the Wild was that way too, right?
right. Yeah.
Or did I say Breath of the Wild? I meant Tears of the Kingdom.
You did. I was going to correct you, but I bet you did it yourself.
I corrected myself.
All right. Well, I'm hoping that once we get more details, we'll have more stuff to talk about on the show.
Yep.
I think it'll be
With time.
Fun to see what they come up with. I was almost going to say Nintendo never disappoints with their hardware, but they certainly have. So it's going to be a crapshoot for this one. So let's move into our topics and our music. Chris, you're up first. What song are we playing today?
Well, I had to take what might be the only opportunity to play some Fire Emblem on your show. So I picked the main theme, the Inferno version from Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, composed by Hiromu Akaba, Asami Mitake, Ayako Toyoda, and Yuki Matsumura.
All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. That was the main theme, the Inferno version from Fire Emblem Warriors, 3 Hopes. I tried to get my money's worth of Fire Emblem onto the show.
As you did. Great tune. I mean, it's definitely a Warriors tune.
Yeah, for sure. And it grabs the themes, the little melodies from previous Fire Emblems. So it's just like, if you are into the series and you played 3 Houses, I mean, I put like 250 hours into 3 Houses playing like 6 times through. That theme like pulls you right back in. Sadly, I like the music more than the game, than 3 Hopes, but I love the Warrior soundtracks. I think they do a great job with them.
That was one of the disappointments with the Dragon Quest Warriors games, because I was expecting to hear some metal versions of all the Dragon Quest songs, but they kept it orchestral. I was like, I'm not a big fan of orchestral tunes, so the game was all right, but I didn't get that music that I wanted, so kind of a letdown in that respect. But that brings us to your topic.
Yeah, so I thought it would be an interesting sort of thought experiment, but if you could pick a game, a movie, a TV show to cast you as the main character, what kind of medium would you choose and what genre would you want it to be? Bearing in mind, it doesn't have to be a biography or anything, just like something that used your likeness and you could help steer the project through to completion.
I like it. So what would you pick?
I like the idea of a show. I feel like TV has really evolved in our lifetime to sort of be a better way to deliver more complex stories than movies.
Right. Because there's all that streaming and no restrictions on it like cable TV has.
Yeah, and so I would rather watch I like limited series where they're like, look, this could have been a movie, but we made it like a 7-episode show, and maybe we might tell another story, but I feel like you can really just get really deep into the story. I watch a lot of thriller, but not horror, more sort of man, I can't really tell what's going on here. It's probably going to take a weird turn that might be a little uncomfortable, but and so those types of shows.
My bread and butter.
Yeah. Like a lot of British detective shows, like BBC stuff, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. I can totally see that. I don't know, what would you pick, Mila?
I told you yesterday that I would like to be in a Mad Max style, like Furiosa, because she's incredible.
You just want to drive crazy cars?
I just want to drive in crazy ass vehicles and be a strong leading woman. I would play myself.
Yeah, I can totally see that happening as well. So the meat of the question is what medium? So would you want it to be a movie, a series?
No, I also love series like that. Movies are great, but being able to deep dive into a limited series like that, like I watched Chernobyl, and that was so good and so well done. I watched it after we had watched The Last of Us, and it was done by the same guy. And his storytelling was just fantastic. I can't believe that he came from doing other comedies. And I was like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? So I really enjoyed watching him make those types of stories, and I would prefer to be in a series as opposed to a movie.
You're talking about Neil Druckmann, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure we credit him for his work.
Neil.
For all the listeners out there.
Yeah. The Chernobyl guy.
The Chernobyl guy.
The Chernobyl and The Last of Us guy.
I don't know. I've been given some thought to this, and it's been tough. I think I would definitely do a series. I feel like it just gives you more opportunity for character development, gives you more opportunity for other people to come in and out of the show instead of a movie where it's like, here's your cast and that's your cast. As far as the content, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I kind of like the darker stuff with twists, but in a more sci-fi style. So something like Black Mirror, where there was just a lot of I really liked the message of Black Mirror, where it's like, here are different facets of technology in our world and what could happen if that gets out of hand. And so kind of coupling that as me, maybe as a technology detective, kind of dealing with these firms that are kind of going crazy with their technology, and how do I solve this issue, and social media is infecting people's computers, stuff, just weird stuff like that. I think that would be a really fun kind of series to do, and it would kind of suit my taste as well. What about you, Todd?
I'm not a big center of attention guy. I think you all probably know that. So I see myself more of a supporting role type of a
Off in the background playing the President of the United States.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say, like,
Not the center
I
of
could see
attention.
myself being like a blacksmith in an RPG, just kind of ting-tinging away on a piece of orange metal that never seems to take shape. And then, like, when somebody comes up to me, I can be like, what the hell do you want?
Hello, weary traveler!
Can't you see I'm busy with this piece of metal that never does anything?
I'm busy doing nothing.
For
Why are
18
you
gold
here?
ingots,
I
I'll
like
give
the-
you this
the-
orange piece of metal.
The old curmudgeon blacksmith.
That's right.
Old man screaming at Scott.
Perfect. You would be working on a Mega Man hand cannon that would just never get finished.
Right.
That works for me. We had some write-ins from our listeners. Todd, you want to start with Ryan's?
Yeah, Ryan says, if I could become a main character of a series, a thought fills my mind. Where would I want to go where it would be so much fun and not terrifying? So many games and shows are offset by actual terror. Most fantasy worlds are filled with monsters that would be almost as scary as living in Australia. But I suppose the prerequisite of being the main character would override the possibility that I would just be a normal dude living in a fantasy world where I am severely underleveled and need a hero to save me. So he gives a couple of answers here. Vanilla answer, Star Wars, providing it's either before any of the movies.
It's grammatically incorrect. Just
Okay, we're going with it. Providing it's either before any of the movies. So I could either be a force-sensitive saber user traveling the galaxy and not be under authoritarian rule. Who wants to be under authoritarian rule? The chocolate answer is probably some Dungeons and Dragons world. Even though there are insane monsters everywhere, as the main character, I would be a sorcerer with plot armor, and all wounds would be healed by getting a tight 8 hours of sleep.
that works for me.
I mean, I love me some 8 hours of sleep.
I don't know if I want to spend my entire life wandering through dank dungeons, though.
And the spicy answer is some JRPG where I kill a planet or alien deity, I guess. Fire Emblem or some PC 98 game. I'm sure there are added benefits in those worlds.
There's plenty of added benefits in PC 98 games, that's for sure.
Spicy.
It's very spicy. There's a lot of porn and PC 98 games out there.
Yeah, that could have been.
Where you're a hero adventurer, but when you save the lady, she thanks you in many different ways.
Very
the spicy
spicy.
waifu husbandu answer. I think.
Chris, you want to read what Metal Man has to say?
Sure. Metalman says, I'm not sure of the medium, but a character based upon me would have to have a dual identity. Most people would know this character as someone boring who looks normal, works his day job, and enjoys time with his family. But there would be the part inside that fully embraces video games and heavy metal, but isn't always comfortable sharing that with the outside world. Someone who thinks like Nadesco's guy Dagioji, but can't say it out loud. If this character were in a game, the game would involve a lot of grinding. Not the modern day kind that just lets you 100% a game. I mean the kind you have to do to make it all like the original Final Fantasy.
To make it at all, like
To make-
the
yeah.
original. Okay,
Good old grinding.
So yeah, the normal guy with the fire in his belly, I guess, is how he's
Yeah.
describing himself. That works for me.
Just wants to go out and kill slimes for hours and hours on end until
To heavy metal music, you gotta make sure that's in there.
Put your AirPods in.
Yeah, interesting answers. I think there's been a couple of video game centric answers, a couple of so it's either been video games or TV series. I don't think anybody wants to be in a movie. I just think the movies are not content rich enough to like insert yourself into.
Yeah, I almost feel like we've been spoiled at this point with like how far TV has come in terms of truly telling like deep, complex stories.
Yeah. A season of a well-made television series feels like a 10-hour movie at this point. So that makes the most sense to me. All right, let's move on to our next topic. Todd, what you got for your track?
All right, I'm gonna turn down the heat a little bit from Chris's high energy track. This is Traverse Town from Kingdom Hearts, released on the PlayStation 2 in 2002. Composer Yoko Shimomura.
Ooh, back-to-back Yoko Shimomura tracks on Embassy exclusive.
Welcome back. That was Traverse Town from Kingdom Hearts, released originally on PlayStation 2 in 2002, although it has been ported to several things since, I think. Anyway, composed by Yoko Shimomura in a rare departure for me. This is actually apropos.
Oh my goodness.
To my topic, which is something I never do.
Unbelievable.
I figured since we have a guest here and Joe is not here that I would try something different.
You just didn't want to confuse the poor.
I didn't want to confuse Joe. Really is what it was.
I gotcha.
don't think you would be able to. My topic for today is, what is a game that you have fond memories of, but later when you thought to play it again for that delicious hit of nostalgia that we all love, it just didn't turn out to be that good. And for me, please don't tell my wife, but that game is Kingdom Hearts.
Oh no.
My wife and I, when we first started dating, one of the things that initially endeared me to her was that she was playing video games, specifically Kingdom Hearts. And, being a Square Final Fantasy fan, I hadn't really paid much attention to Kingdom Hearts, but knew that it was done by Square and had Final Fantasy-related characters in it. So that was about all I knew about it. So for the first, several months that we dated, we played a lot of Kingdom Hearts, and we had a very good time being in our relationship playing this game. And I told her about how all of these other characters that are not Disney characters are from Final Fantasy games, and that sort of led her into playing Final Fantasy X, which she's a big fan of now. And there's a lot of history to that in that game for us, and we both loved it, and we have fond memories of it. But more recently, she played it again just for that nostalgia hit, and we were both watching it, and we were just like, this is not what we remember it being. It just was not. We definitely, still have fond memories. It was heavily involved in the beginning of our relationship, but as a game, it just has not held up for us. Yeah. So, wondering if you guys have any other examples of games like that, but that's kind of like the big one for me. So I'm wondering if you guys have anything not necessarily like so rooted in your lives, but something like that.
Can I ask you a follow-up question before we move on to that?
Please do.
Did you guys play any of the other Kingdom Hearts games, or was that the only one?
We did play 2.
Okay.
She also played 3. What was that, released on PS4 somewhat recently?
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
I watched her play that a little bit, and I kind of bounced right off of it, like running up walls and doing all kinds of weird stuff I didn't even bother trying to play. But we did play Kingdom Hearts 2.
Because I was kind of wondering if getting more used to the enhancements that the more recent games had would color your opinion of what the original game was, and that when you actually saw it, it was different than what you remembered.
For a while, when those side games came out, like there was one on the GBA, there was one on DS, there was like a whole bunch
425 teardrops,
all kinds of weird
names
and stuff. I would just buy them for her by default, and she would play them.
I got you this Kingdom Hearts.
She would play them, well, just as a gift or something like that, because we both liked Kingdom Hearts at the time. And she would give it the old college try, as it were, but usually would not finish them. Just it was different enough from the original that she wasn't really interested in playing it.
Just never recaptured the magic, I guess.
Just never really captured the magic, exactly.
Interesting. I'm glad that you at least had that initial experience, and you don't need to go back to necessarily recapture that, because you can just play other games together.
Right.
Like Final Fantasy X.
Right.
That game never gets old.
Not to her.
From what I hear.
She replays it every so often. She loves it. She loves it. It's not my favorite. I like it, but it's not my favorite.
What about you, Chris? Any examples?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. 2 examples come to mind for different reasons. But so I have really fond memories of the Tales series, not the Trails series, but I played a lot of Tales of Symphonia and Tales of Fantasia. I missed a bunch of the other later Tales games. And
Tales of Dubstep.
Yeah. And so I picked up I pre-ordered Tales of Arise because in my mind I was like, I love RPGs, I love these Tales games, whatever. And I got it, and I was like, man, I just don't really like this battle system. And then I was like, I think this is the Tales battle system though. I think that this has not changed materially. And so I went back to play Symphonia, and I was like, I hate this. I absolutely hate this system. I'm like, what is happening? It's not really turn-based. It's not really an action RPG. And again, I was like, I think I just liked it back then because I hadn't experienced a bunch of different RPG whatever. But
right. You see other games that improve on that system, and then you realize how clunky it was.
Right. And I have found that I've sort of burned out on Xenoblade Chronicles in the same sort of way, because again, that sort of mixed action RPG turn-based thing. I get that it has an appeal for lots of people. Whatever it's trying to do just whiffs on me. I don't understand this.
Interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of it's just rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just games that eclipse those particular games, and they do the same thing but so much better that going back to it is like, and I've got probably some examples of that too, but that's interesting. What about you, Mila? I know you don't play as many games as we do, but...
Absolutely not.
After I got my 3 Bears back,
it
just wasn't the same.
It just doesn't hit like it used to. Probably Sonic.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We played
Discord's
it
gonna have fun with this
much. Well, growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of video games. We had systems, but we didn't have games. So we would go down to either Blockbuster or like the local place, which, it was just like a local place and you could just get video games. It was like $1 to rent a video game. And we'd bring them back to the house and they would suck inevitably. And then we would walk back down to the place and get a new one. And so most of the time, the only games that we had were like, Sonic and like one other. So we would probably play Sonic 8,000 times and I could nearly beat the game. But when we put it in, I don't know, whenever it was, and you hadn't ever really played it that much.
Yeah, no. I only ever played Sonic CD because I got a Genesis so late into the game.
So we had Genesis practically since launch. And when I played it and you were like, oh my God.
She's like whipping through these levels. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. And then I turned it off and was like, well, that was that.
That was Sonic.
And that was Sonic for you. And he's like, I have never seen you play a video game like that. And I'm like, that's because that's all we did for like 3 summers. It held absolutely no nostalgia for me. I couldn't have cared less. It's fine. It just didn't mean anything to me. And so many people are in love with it. And I'm like, it's fine. Tails is cute and it's a fun game, but when you play it, because it's the only game you have, it's kind of trash.
You were doing it more to pass the time than you were to actually have fun.
It's like when it's raining outside and it's summer and you're 13, you have nothing left to do.
It's fair. Okay. And I think that's, it's unique to like have a person like you on the show for a change, because it's like the first time we've ever heard anybody say, yeah, I don't really have nostalgia for video games back in the day. Like everybody that we talk to is like, I grew up on video games and that's why I do what I do today.
No, I mean, like I said, it's a fine video game. It's fun to play.
Yeah.
I just don't, Mario is great. I love playing that too. It's just, it's like having, the off-road video game in my, I had the closet game in my...
Oh, yeah, she had a 4-player Ivan Ironman Stewart off-road, a 4-player cabinet with the steering wheels.
Wow. Yeah,
in her garage.
In my garage.
Whoa.
She was like, whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had like the cabinet open so we could just like hit the thing a million times so we didn't have to put coins in it. We would just play it.
It's all perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I had the gold Zelda cartridge. We probably beat that a bunch of times too. None of these were, fantastic for me. I was outside digging in the dirt. Whatever.
I probably beat Zelda a couple times. Whatever.
No bigs.
This was never, I think the battery
for everyone else,
died
it's like the defining moment of their childhood.
Exactly.
Yeah, the battery
I'm like,
died.
I have it framed on my wall.
So it was never saved. So we'd have to start at the
I
beginning
killed Ganon,
all
no
the
bigs.
time, every single
It's
time
Tuesday.
we play Zelda. So it didn't. This was,
Yeah.
It was more frustrating for me to play video games than anything.
That's totally understandable.
So, all you guys were inside and I'm outside playing on the beach or in the dirt. None of this was exciting for me.
I think
my first beat video game was God of War. No, it wasn't. It was The Godfather.
Oh, that's right. You played the hell out of that.
Hell yeah, because that was a good game. Okay, so that was nostalgic for me. I'm sure if I put that in now, it would suck.
Yeah, I don't think it held up. It was like PS2 game, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's probably a terrible game, but I felt so good beating that because it was like literally one of the first video games like of that type that I ever beat. So that would probably...
Yeah. Some of those, particularly like the adventure or action games in the PS1 or early PS2 era, are hard to return to.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
God of War probably holds up. That's
that's still an amazing game because that broke so many rules and broke new ground as far as games like that were concerned.
I think Milo brings up a good point about Sonic, though. Like, I never had a Genesis growing up, and so my interaction with Sonic was very short, like stints at friend's house or something like that. And so, like, Sonic was always shown in commercials as being, like, fast, but I could never make Sonic go fast. Very brief periods
Yeah.
of, like, going through a loop or something like that, but then, like, hitting a wall.
Yeah.
And just being like...
Or hitting
now,
an enemy and boom.
Now
there's
I'm
rings
walking
everywhere.
again and just, like...
That makes
exploring
easy, Todd.
levels and getting rings like one at a time, but having the timer run out on me before I actually finish a level. And I think that like you have to play Sonic enough to memorize the level to know the path to go through if you want
Yes.
to be fast. And that's just not something that I ever did. So I never saw Sonic as fast, just like another platformer.
I think if you embrace as long as you have one ring, it is as good as having 200 rings.
Yes.
Right.
And so as long as you know if you hit something, you need to focus to get at least one ring back, you can make it pretty fast.
Right, right. It's just...
It's going to be sloppy.
Right.
Yes.
But when you only have one
There's-
ring, it's harder to pick that ring back
Yes,
up again.
exactly.
when you hit,
It's
so.
not a whole lot of strategy, I will tell you that.
Yeah.
It's really not.
It's ring management.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Just keep moving to the left
It's a
or
business,
to the right in any...
okay?
Yeah.
This is financial business.
Yeah. And then they throw in that strategy of the underwater levels where you have to manage
Where
the
you
bubbles.
have to manage the
Oh, yeah,
bubble,
the
which
bubbles.
is the worst one. I was literally just thinking of the music in my head.
Just because it always
No,
seemed to me...
please stop. It's so stressful.
It always seemed to me that the bubbles were like randomized, like they didn't come up all the time. So if you were dying and you're
Yes.
sitting like next to
the thing,
a
and it wouldn't
bubble
give it. You'd have to
generation
walk
point,
away from
nucleation
it and
point,
come back to the
sometimes a big
bubble.
one wouldn't show up and you'd die anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like most video games with water, all the water level's terrible.
Yeah.
They're all. Why do they do that?
That and ice levels.
Same,
Yeah.
same
So
reason to
anxiety
ice levels,
inducing.
yeah.
I think I'd rather take ice over water.
Yeah, 100 times. 100 times over.
If
on the fence
I'm
about
like Mario, ice over water. Donkey Kong, ice over water. Zelda, ice over water temple. Because I don't ever want to do water temple.
I'll
again.
drown every time. I'll drown every time, even in dungeons. You still have it, but sometimes you can get like a totem guy, and then you have like a air bubble around you.
Yes. Yep. I don't know. I'm just never been an ice level fan. I
Telling you.
think I prefer the water. Except for the temple. I would prefer the... Yeah,
Yes.
the water temple just sucks.
Yes.
That's just not fun. All right, let's move on to our final topic of the show. My track for this one is... I don't think I've played this one. I might have played this one on Pixel Tunes, but definitely not on VGMbassy. The Solidus Cave song, the Crystal Caves version from Hyrule Warriors, released on the Wii U and Switch in 2014, composed by Masato Koike and Yuki Matsumura. All right, that was Solidus Cave, the Crystal Caves version from Hyrule Warriors, released on the Wii U and Switch in 2014, composed by Masato, Koike, and Yuki Matsumura, much to Mila's chagrin. Not a fan of the Warriors games.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. You should have heard her before we turned the mics on anyway. Yeah, so I picked a track from this game because it reminds me of my topic. And the topic is, what kind of game merch gets you excited? I'm talking about everything from postcards and soundtracks to 3-foot-tall statues. What's your favorite thing you have at home? What's out there that you really want but can't find or is too much money? As a bonus question, what kind of merch would you like to see for a game that doesn't exist? And this reminds me of the time where it was fairly early in the Pixel Tunes radio days. Mike had just moved into his new house and we had our own little office down there. Hyrule Warriors was releasing and they were doing a midnight launch of the game at Nintendo World in New York City. And Mike is not so much a Zelda fan anymore because he didn't really like Breath of the Wild, but back then he was still huge into Zelda. So he went down to New York City and got like the collector's edition of the game. And I was like, Eddie was really little and we didn't have a lot of money back then either. Anyways, the kids were little. And I just didn't want to, I probably had to work the next day or something. I just want to spend all night in New York City and then come back on the train. However, had I known that Hyrule Warriors was going to end up being like one of my favorite games of all time and dumping hundreds and hundreds of hours into it, I think I would have gone with him and said, screw you, Milo, this means a lot to me.
It's fair.
Because there was an exclusive that they gave away at I think it was only in one location in Japan and one location in New York City. And it was the scarf that Link wears in the game, like an actual scarf with like the Hylian symbol on it. It was really, really cool. And when he brought it home, it was like, I didn't think much about it, but you don't realize like wears it through the entire game. And it just, you can't find it anywhere. Like even if you find it on eBay, it's like several $100s. So if I could go back in time and get the opportunity to go get that piece of merch, I'm not a huge merch person. When I buy things, I like it to be functional, but I think just because of my attachment to that game, having that collector's edition would be really, really cool. So it's kind of what inspired this topic. So I was wondering if you guys had any similar instances or what you have at home that you really do like, something that you wish you had or something that you wish existed.
I do remember the scarf incident, although for some reason I thought it was for Breath of the Wild, not for Hyrule Warriors.
No, it was Hyrule
but I do
Warriors.
remember that Mike went down.
Mike picked up one for him and one for Eric or Scott or one of his friends.
Yeah, and you had to be present.
And you could only get two. It was like two per person or something like that.
Right. Yeah, you had to be
Or
present.
he went with Scott. I'm sorry, he went with Scott and they each got one. That's what it was.
Still, man, doing a midnight release in New York City, that sounds like...
And it was
that
the middle of
sounds
winter
rough.
too. It was like towards the holiday season,
Right,
so it was
right.
probably
I
bitter
think
cold.
it was November.
Yeah.
I mean, merch makes me think of Mike, so that story tracks for sure.
Bringing back fond or maybe not so fond memories of you and I sitting outside that Target to get the Wii. Like that was
I
in
remember
November,
that.
as I recall, or
Yep.
It was really
something
cold
close to
out
it,
that
and it
night,
was
too.
damn cold that night. We were freezing.
Yeah, several layers on. That's for sure. It was below freezing.
But as far as your topic is concerned, I can't think of anything like a piece of merch or anything that would be video game related that I would want. I do have a piece that kind of turned out to be not what I expected it to be. When Dishonored 2 came out, they offered a collector's edition with like a mask, the mask that the character wears in the game, if you're familiar at all with Dishonored. And looking at it on the internet, it looked like it was going to be like a little, maybe 6-inch tall sort of a figurine mask that I was going to like bring into work and just have on my desk or something like that. But it was a life-size mask that you practically could wear yourself.
Oh, cool.
And so the box is enormous, and I did not expect this huge package to arrive at my doorstep when it was delivered. And my wife goes, "What the hell is that thing?" And I legitimately didn't know because I didn't expect it to be that big.
Yeah.
And it's this monster mask that I didn't want. I didn't want it to be that big. And so now I still have it because am I going to sell it? Like,
Yeah,
does
right.
anybody even want it? Like it was a collector's edition for Dishonored 2, but I just have this huge box that I never open. I don't think I ever actually took it out of the box. It's just like a thing that's there. And like you, I like getting video games, and I don't mind if they're like in box or anything like that, although that's not necessarily what I'm for. But the additional stuff, I'm not I'm not generally huge on.
Yeah, I really have to have a genuine soul matching kind of an attachment to a game to really want some merch from it. For sure.
Anything Tim Fallen.
And anything Tim Fallen, yes. But even that's just the games themselves in the boxes. So
Like
I
being
wouldn't
a huge,
consider that merch.
like being a huge Final Fantasy fan, I pre-ordered Final Fantasy 16. There was all kinds of collector's editions and stuff you could go for. It never even crossed my mind to consider getting like the steel book or the art book or there's like, I think one of them had like a map or something that you could get. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff that I could have picked up as part of that purchase, and I just didn't care.
You collect vinyl though, don't you?
Yeah.
Any vinyl soundtracks you would like to have that don't exist or that are really hard to find that you've been after?
Oh man, I'm not prepared for that one. It kind of depends on the video game soundtrack. Like Joe and I have picked up a couple of like straight NES soundtracks just converted to vinyl, or just pressed onto vinyl, like River City Ransom and stuff like that. And we got it just because like, hey, we love these games and we like listening to the music. Yeah. But it just kind of fell flat when we actually got it on vinyl. Like I listened to it.
Well, I heard especially that River City Ransom.
The River City Ransom one was kind of a letdown
effort.
because it was really just like a cheaply made piece of vinyl in like a cardboard sleeve, and that was it.
Yeah.
No liner notes, no nothing. And for the, I think $40 or something that we ended up spending on it, we were just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So that was kind of a letdown, and maybe was part of what has sort of turned me off to like those kind of vinyl soundtracks. There's a couple of companies that just put video game soundtracks on vinyl, particularly old ones, and I'm always just like, just not really worth it for me at this point.
Yeah.
Especially after an experience like that, I don't, unless I know what I'm getting, it's just not.
Right. Yeah. I'd want to see some decent pictures of the inside, the outside, what I'm getting with it, or
Like
at least
I got the Axiom Verge soundtrack on vinyl, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Data Discs does a lot of like older games, but they do a pretty good job with like the album art. I have the Streets of Rage set, and it's good. It's again, it still is like chiptune and other like on vinyl, and so it's a little bit of a weird like experience. Some of the vinyl that I would love, the older Square Super Nintendo, like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, like having those on vinyl. Well, like if they did them nice where it had liner notes and like some more art would be great.
Yeah, that's cool. I know Mike and Justin just did a XVGM After Dark with Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time vinyl, which was really cool because it was like, Turtle Shell LP, and it was all like
cool
green and explosion colors with really nice liner notes and art in there. So I guess it really just depends on how you do it. I know you're a huge art book and vinyl collector.
Yeah, and not to spoil, but I see I get called out a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I don't buy a lot of collectors' things. It's been interesting. I have been pretty into reselling stuff, and so I've been getting collector's editions, keeping the game and piecing out the stuff later, like a year later, and it winds up being like twice what I paid for the thing. A lot of RPGs come with like 3 different versions. They come with the standard, just the game. Then it's like the collector's edition, which is like $100, and then there's like the $250 to $300 one with like the statue and all this other stuff. Yep. I typically wind up getting for like the Trails of Cold Steel games, the Falcom games, and some others, like the $100 one, because I am a big sucker for art books. I would prefer like an actual well-made separate art book than the small art book that basically fits inside a video game case. So I have a lot of those that like Dark Horse and a couple of like Bitmap books makes really good books and stuff like that. So that's the stuff that always gets me. I have all the amiibo for Zelda and Fire Emblem. I don't intend to get any other series because it's not like the amiibo, it's like the fact that it is those characters that I feel the connection to.
And you can also use them with the game too, which kind of gives it a functionality.
Yeah.
Unless they're still in the package, in which case there's like, I think they have a blocker underneath them, so you can't pain in the butt.
Yes, the Phantomire is effectively like, he's like kind of a devil on my shoulder where I constantly get DMs on Discord. He's like, hey, you told me like 2 years ago you were missing this one Zelda. I found it on eBay, and he's like, it should be cheap to ship to you. Or he's like, hey, there's this VGM or this vinyl piece, and I'm like, oh man.
That's download, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, while you were talking, I was going to mention that I do have one cool piece, which I've never ever seen ever again. When they released Katamari for the PSP, only in Japan they released these vinyl PSP cases that were like the PSP is the perfect shape for the prince's head. So it's the prince's head with a zipper on the side that you can slip the PSP into. It's got the little antenna part on the top. So I found that on eBay like shortly after it got released and picked it up, and it was super cheap. And then I've never seen another one since. So just because my family has such a big history with Katamari, I thought that was kind of a cool thing to pick up.
My Switch is in the Breath of the Wild Sheikah Slate case.
Cool.
And my wife is always like, but really, what is that? Because I'll take, obviously I only use it when we take it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I take it out, like we'll be on a plane and she's just like, oh man.
When you get to the airport, you stick it in the wall and a huge tower.
Exactly, yeah.
What about you, Mila? Did you care about this crap?
I care about it because you got so excited yesterday when you opened that package. Do you want to share what you received?
Oh, well, yeah, I didn't even really talk about it, and I kind of meant to at the beginning of the show, but there was a Super Nintendo game that had been lost for a while called Moto X. There were only a couple of grainy pieces of footage on YouTube, and I was just looking through. We were doing a show on like unreleased games or something at one point, and I had come across this. It was basically like a gameplay loop. It was like a CES like VHS tape that they would have shown on a TV without having the actual game. But they had the theme song playing with some footage of the game, and that was like the footage that was on YouTube. And I'm listening to the music, and I'm like, this is definitely Tim Follin. Like, what? I've never heard this Super Nintendo song before. What is this? So it was called Moto X, and so I took that music from the YouTube video and kind of cut it together into a loop. And I played it at the end of like the second Tim Follin show on Pixel Tunes Radio, just as like here's a game that never got released. It's really cool. I hope you guys like it. So at the Midwest Gaming Classic for 2023, that what they've been doing at these classics is like having an official unreleased game like come to retail. And it just happened this year was that Moto X game that I had thought was like just lost to time. So I completely jumped on it. They only made 300 of them. They sold them at the Classic, but evidently didn't sell all 300. So the two vendors that were selling them at the expo had them on eBay. So I was like, oh, I tracked one down, picked one up, just got delivered yesterday. So I was like, sweet, because I have up there on my shelf the collection of all the Tim Follin games that I have complete in box so far. Really the only games I collect at this point. So I was like, I thought it was really cool to add something so kind of like special and rare to my Tim Follin collection. So now it's up there. I'm trying to use the ROM to extract all of the soundtrack data so that I can finally make a soundtrack and put it up with my collection. It looks like the theme song is definitely Tim Follin. The liner notes in the game credit Jeff Follin for composition, so I think it's one of those things like Plock where Tim worked on some stuff, Jeff worked on some stuff. I know the two's style so easily at this point that I can tell exactly like which brother composed which song. So for sure the title theme is Tim. I think the rest that I've heard so far are Jeff, so I'm curious to see if there's any more of Tim stuff. But even if it's just the title theme, it's cool enough. And Jeff's music is great too, so I have no regrets for picking that up at all. And it came with a little token.
Yeah.
It says like 87 of 300, so.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
It was just so cute to watch you open the package. He was like, oh, I got a small package coming today. And I'm like, I know, it's from Pirate Ship. Because that's what it said in the UPS, USPS thing, because, we get the alert things. And I was like, it's from Pirate Ship. And he was like, it is.
Yeah.
And he's opening it in the kitchen, and he's like, look at this. And I was like, look, I don't even know what the heck this is. And you're so excited, and I'm just excited for you. I don't know. Shit about shit.
I, for one, think we need Mila's opinion on this show more often.
I think so, too. The microphone's always open. There's always a free seat.
I just thought it was really cute. I was like, I don't really care. Like, I watched The Last of Us, and I knew nothing about the game, and I would love to play the game. I'm still waiting for them to have the computer version work out the rest of its bugs.
Yeah. Well, speaking of merch, you're wearing a The Last of Us shirt right now?
I am wearing the Firefly shirt. Even though they aren't so great.
Would you like a 3-foot-tall statue of Pedro Pascal?
I'd rather have a 6-foot-tall statue of Pedro Pascal.
We'll stop the conversation there.
Oh, okay.
This is a family show, Mila.
I'll get you a 6-foot-tall statue of Tim Follin.
Nice. Naked riding a unicycle?
Obviously.
Is there any other way?
Rainbows?
That was the joke when I did the show with the Dyad a couple episodes ago, when I gave him the invitation to come on the show for the Masters of VGM. I said it was delivered by Tim Fallon, naked riding a unicycle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
That's beautiful.
yeah. So we have
Okay to
some.
see that. I don't even know what he looks like, so.
Think of a British guy. That's Tim Fallon.
Oh,
Anyways, let's
sorry, British listeners.
hear from some
We love
of
you.
our listeners. Speaking of which, Mila, you want to read what the Phantom Meyer has to say?
I tend to prefer merch that you can display on a shelf easily. Amiibos and such are cool, but I prefer Lego, model kits, figures, things like that. The Horizon Lego is amongst my favorite video game merch I own. I desperately wish I had money for any of the Shadow of the Colossus figures. They're really cool, but since I didn't get one of them on release, they're all too rich for my blood. So I have to covet instead. I assume this question is so our good friend Chris can talk about art books.
Guilty.
Yeah, I didn't really think about video game Legos, because I know that the Mario set exists, or the Mario sets exist, but
I think there's a couple Sonic ones too.
Okay. I would,
They're expensive even for Lego.
I'm sure.
Extremely expensive.
Like I have the DeLorean and the Ecto-1 over there. Those were pricey. I can only
Very.
imagine what video game licensing will do to Lego sets. I love Lego because they're fun to build, and then once you've built them, you've got this really kind of impressive thing that you can show off as a display piece.
Do nothing with.
No, I love them. I look at those all the time, and I'm like, that's so cool.
Those are cool, though. Those are very cool.
And some of them I built, with Logan, so I have those memories of Logan and I doing that together as well. So the Phantom Meyer seems to be kind of on my level too, where he likes things that are like functional that
Yeah.
you can interact with. I don't just want a statue that I'm going to put on the shelf
agree.
and kind of just look at every once in a while. If I'm going to get something, it's going to be like a cool controller or a little piece of hardware or something that I can actually do something with every once in a while.
I personally do like the pop figures, though, because when I look at my pop figure collection, I remember the fun times that I've had watching the shows or the movies.
That's true.
So that's probably one of the only like real dust collector type statuesque type things I collect.
Oh, dust collectors is a good way to describe
Yeah,
those
exactly.
kind of things.
Yeah, they really
I will humble
are.
brag for Dan, though, because I don't think he would ever share too much about this, but he also can make his own merch, and he's sent me some
Yes.
pretty amazing
Yes.
drawings and paintings and other things that he's done
That
for Chrono Trigger
the
and all sorts of
messenger
stuff.
pixel art right there is from him. So
So some of my favorite pieces are from him. He made one of Chrono and Marley, like when Chrono, spoiler alert, comes back to life after they use the Chrono Trigger, and they're hugging at the fire, and it's hanging in my son's room, so that he like asks about it all the time, and like,
That's
when
cool.
they're older
That's
to
really
play the
cute.
game.
I like it, and it's such a nice warm moment in the game too. All right, so the Last Rican says, the merch that gets me hype usually are posters or little collectible figurines. Usually when a new Pokemon game comes out, they come with posters, which I hang up in my son's room. I wouldn't mind more merch in the shape of figures, but I'm running out of room with all the pops I have. Sounds like you. The one piece of merchandise I would love, so Spider-Man 2 has a collector's edition that's $250 with a 19-inch statue of Venom surrounding Spider-Man and Miles.
Oh, I think I've actually seen that.
Anyone who knows me knows I'm a huge Venom fan, so I would love this, but I can't justify that price with a new baby due in a few weeks. Plus, you can only get it via PlayStation Direct, and I just refuse to subscribe to that. Oh, and on a side note, a gaming moment that had an emotional impact on me. Oh, so now he's responding to last month's. Would be the bug catching contest in Pokemon Silver. The bug park theme is very mellow and uplifting. I had a horrible childhood, and video games helped me get through it, especially Pokemon Silver, and that's why it's my favorite game. It allowed me to escape from my harsh reality and let me forget for a few hours. Yeah, Last Rican grew up in a kind of a religious cult, so he had a daring escape from that, and is doing very well for himself right now.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah. But yeah, that statue sounds cool. Like, that might convince me to want to get something cool. Especially if it's a dynamic statue like that. Like, just a video game character standing there in a pose, whatever. But if you've got, like, 3 characters in kind of a dynamic action sequence, that might tip me over the edge as far as appreciating something like that.
There's a lot of those types of bigger statues that I'm like, this is cool. I'm never going to spend $250. on
Right,
this.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
I got the Tokyo Xanadu collector's edition, which is a like lesser known, like in the Falcom ecosystem, whatever. It's like the box is humongous. It's like 2.5 feet by whatever. But I got it because GameStop was like, we're selling it for like $20. I was like, okay. And it came with this big statue, and I was like, okay, this is so weird. And I played the game, and I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm glad I have this statue, but I'm like, again, I'm also glad I paid $20 for the game and the stuff and this other thing and this other thing.
A lot of times they'll do that for like video game stores where they'll give them one, but it's not almost even meant for retail. It's just meant to be like a giveaway or something to kind of like display to hype up the game or something like that. Like my brother, after I'd stopped working at FuncoLand and GameStop, my brother was working for them, and they got like a Lollipop Chainsaw merch box, had like a poster and a t-shirt and a soundtrack and all that stuff, but it was like you can't find it anywhere else except for like press releases.
Yeah.
So he knew I liked the game, so he gave it to me, but it was like not meant to be sold. So maybe if they were selling it for $20, they put it under a different SKU or something, or just trying to make some money off it. How shady. Anyways, Todd, want to read what the Dyad has to say?
Dyad says, I guess I'm simple here. I like little figurines and t-shirts. The complicating factor is that most of the things aren't attractive to me when they come out. It's only when I'm looking through the lens of nostalgia that I wish I still had my old X shirt or Y toy. My favorite, that's why it's nostalgic.
Exactly.
My favorite piece of gaming related thing I own is my Super Potato t-shirt, retro game store in Tokyo. The piece of merch that I have been looking for is an arcade marquee for Quizzes and Dragons. I don't even know how much it would cost because I haven't ever found an active listing. I'm not even sure what that is.
That's like an old CPS-1 Capcom arcade game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the arcade marquee is obviously a big rectangle above the arcade.
No, I know what the
cabinet.
marquee is. I've just never heard of Quizzes and Dragons.
Yeah, it's literally like a quiz game, like a bar top kind of quiz game,
okay.
just made by Capcom. And I think a lot of the questions revolve around other Capcom games up to that point or something like that. They were big in Japan, so they had a bunch of Japan quiz games, and this was the only one that was ever released in English.
Quizzes and Dragons jives with my mental map of the Dyad. Absolutely.
We still want to do another Dyad challenge at some point. Why don't you read what Ryan Steele says?
Maybe it's Nintendo's fault, but I don't get hyped for special editions of games anymore because they are sold out at the moment they are listed. Mm-hmm. Amen. I know it's not quite on topic, but official merch that comes with the game is fun. You typically get like an OST or some fun stuff, but I just assume I'll never be able to scoop it up. Anyways, I prefer subtle merch like t-shirts, but it's got to be a reference to the game. Not like the video game cover or something. This stems from my dislike of when bands just take the album artwork and put it on a shirt. It's lazy, it's too on the nose. I want people who know the game to get the reference and people who don't know just to think it's cool. So typically the shirt would not say the name of it at all. For just cool merch, I don't collect a lot, but I do like little statues. I mostly collect Magic cards, so crossovers are pretty cool. Recently, there have been a lot of Magic crossovers such as Lord of the Rings, Warhammer 40k, and Street Fighter, so I like that. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
You're welcome,
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, Mila was just pointing to her shirt as Ryan was talking about having a
subtle shirt.
It's
literally
just the Firefly symbol.
Fireflies.
No
It
Last
looks
of
like
Us logo.
it was spray painted with their...
So if you knew the show or the game, you'd get the reference,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
if you didn't, you just think, hey, cool pattern on a shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like a bug.
Yeah.
I have a Celeste hoodie that looks like if Celeste were like a Vermont or New Hampshire ski resort, because Celeste is the name of the mountain. So I've had people be like, oh, where's Celeste? I was like, no, you're not ready for this explanation.
Do you have...
Yeah.
May I have a moment of your time
Yes,
to talk about
exactly.
Celeste?
Can you jump dash?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, we're getting kind of a lot of people talking about wanting things after the fact. And I think that's kind of what draws people to getting them when they first come out, even if they're not nostalgic for it, because they know that the FOMO folks will pay top dollar for it after the fact. And you're taking advantage of that yourself. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. I have a big problem with selling things off when I buy them. And I don't buy a lot. And when I buy them, I make sure that it's something that I want to keep forever, because I've sold off a lot of video games that I've collected from like my days at Funko and GameStop that were like, retail price. I got them new, but then shot up to like, $100, $200, $300. I'm like, I'm never going to play this. It's just sitting on a shelf. I'm only looking at the spine on the end of it. Like, if I can make $300 on it on eBay, I'll go for it. Spider-Man 32X, yeah, it's the rarest 32X game, which I kind of wanted to get a full 32X collection because I'm so close to it, but we had to pay bills at that point. We were dead broke.
Dry.
So
we were running dry.
it was good to have a couple of games like that I could sell off to float ourselves for the next couple months.
the Trails of Cold Steel games all have a steelbook, and I didn't get into them until the second one was already out.
Trails of Cold Steelbook.
Then I had to go back and like get the steelbook for the first one because I was
you
buying
can't have an
a new one, and I
incomplete
was like,
collection.
I can't have 4
Exactly.
with one of them being moused.
Right.
And so then I was like, I actually have a bunch of. I don't care about steelbooks at all. Like, it's fine. But these look cool. I like them. And then I was like, oh, I have a bunch, and I'm like, I bet there's a bunch of other people like me that like wish they had the steelbook for that. And so I just flipped a bunch of the steelbook. Like I just sold the steelbook, just the case of like I think Final Fantasy 12 Collector's Edition, like the old one for PS2 or whatever, for like $15 on eBay. I'm like, look, this someone is gonna like this.
Sure.
It's literally in a pile in the other part of my basement, not on my shelf.
Going to make somebody's day.
Yeah.
When the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Collection that just came out on console, Square sold a very, very limited amount of standalone just games, but also special like collector's editions that come with like a vinyl record and an art book and all kinds of stuff. After it was released on a lark, I just went onto eBay to see what the scalpers were reselling them for. What I actually found was a lot of people were reselling the collector's edition without the game, just the rest of the stuff. And I thought that was interesting. Like, well, you were saying that you buy like collector's edition and then sell off the pieces. It seems like that's what a lot of people were doing. Maybe just in an effort to get a copy of the actual game. Maybe just to make the money back because they were selling them. I mean, they were selling them. I don't know that anybody was buying them, but for like $500.
Yeah, the things that I've typically sold, I wind up, it basically pays back what I paid. Because I'm also not trying to like scalp the video game community of which I'm a part. I would I want to be able to access things that I want, and I'm like, here you go. So I often look up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to be like, if it's $100, I'm going to be $10 cheaper than whatever's at. Like typically I post stuff and it sells within like 3 hours. I'm like, I also don't have time to monitor some eBay stuff.
Right. So the person interested in buying is just going to pick the lowest priced seller and grab it. So makes total sense. Last one, Miley, you want to read what Metal Man has to say?
Sure. I love getting soundtracks on CDs. This feels more permanent to me than digital media. I have lost digital media before after hard drive failures, and it's easier to throw on in the background during a meal. I'm also quite fond of my Breath of the Wild era Link plush doll. It's the 21st century. I'm allowed to like stuff that would have gotten my butt kicked in the 80s. There were also some really cool plastic figurines and scenes from Chrono Trigger when I visited Tokyo many years ago. I got one for a friend, but I keep kicking myself for not buying a few more. What doesn't exist, but should? Maybe some adult-sized game-themed PJs? Absolutely, I agree with that.
Those must exist.
I want...
Oh, I've had them.
Yeah.
I want more PJs. Like, I want zipper PJs that don't have feet. I want... slap some really cute Animal Crossing themed stuff on adult things. Like, please stop making things just for kids. That's not fair.
Yeah. We had Guitar Hero pajama bottoms, and then I had some PlayStation branded pajama bottoms too at some point.
But they need to make like tops. I don't want to wear just like Hanes t-shirt tops. Like, I want 2-piece pajamas like kids.
Yeah.
That's not fair. I also would like,
just like a big Isabel on the back or something.
Yeah, that's fine. I also would like Grogu zipper hoodies with ears. Like I want a Sonic hoodie. I want all of those because I'm an adult and I can wear what I want.
No one's arguing.
Okay.
We also can't make that for you, but
Todd wants a Hello Kitty onesie, I'm sure.
I think Todd would look beautiful in a Hello Kitty onesie.
I'd give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
From a practical standpoint, I received as a gift a shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, cheese shredder. So
Nice.
it's
That's
a cheese
cool.
shredder with the shredder head on top of it.
That's beautiful.
Like they hold it and you shred your cheese. And I'm like, this is amazing. It's practical. It's a thing that I can actually use.
Yeah,
But it's nerdy, and I love it.
that's awesome.
they make a Sonic pizza slicer that looks like Sonic in his
That's
spinball.
perfect.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. I could see it with
the
like
bike.
Sonic with his red shoes for the
Yes.
pizza. That would be cool too. The one step before the spinball. Yeah, what else? We had like Mario and Luigi hat, salt and pepper shakers.
They were almost. They were like hood brand.
Yeah, they weren't.
They weren't like
They were
real.
off-brand, and they didn't work very well either.
They worked terribly.
I don't think what else we had.
I think I recycled those.
Yeah, but that's about it, I think.
What else have we had? Functional adult stuff.
As far as video game related stuff goes, or nerd related stuff, I can't really think of anything else.
We got lightsaber sushi
Yes, I've seen those. Those are awesome.
chopsticks. Yeah, which sadly, I mean, worked great as like a nerdy bit of kit. Like, you know, they light up, they have a little
Right.
a
But
little
they're terrible as
different color
chopsticks.
LED, but as chopsticks they suck because they're just smooth plastic. So you can't actually pick anything up with them. They were
That's
fun
very
to bring to the
disappointing.
sushi restaurant once.
Yeah.
And have people look at us.
Little lightsaber battles in the middle of the hibachi stand. That's cool.
I feel like my retro games have become almost merch because I emulate most older
Yeah.
things, and so the things I do have, I like display them, I rotate them out. Like they're almost not games anymore to me because I don't use them
Yeah.
in their intended function.
Yeah, it was funny because I was at Justin's house last night, and he's got a bunch of his like NES and Super Nintendo games on like a floating shelf that's kind of tiered, so you can like
Same.
see all the games. And mine are just all sitting in a bin behind the bar. And it might be something interesting to do to kind of like pull out some of my more favorite ones. And
Yeah.
I get
See if
worried
the batteries
about
still work.
yeah, but most of the games I played weren't RPGs and stuff, so I didn't play a lot of battery backup games. I played mostly action, arcade, driving games, stuff like that. But the one thing I worry about is getting exposed to light and fading and stuff, or yellowing the plastic. So that's kind of why
There's
I
no
like
light
this
down
basement
here.
down here. I know there's just two very small.
There's no light down
and
here.
generally I have the lights on pretty dim too.
Yeah.
So, but
My
maybe
mindset
that's something
on,
we'll do at some
on
point.
all of my games, my old games, is like I have like flashcards and stuff like that for the Atari, NES, whatever. But if I have the physical cart for a game that I want to play, I'm going to pull out the NES. I'm going to plug it all in.
Yep.
I'm going to get the card out. I'm going to like clean it with a Q-tip. I'm going to fiddle with it until it works.
You
And
don't
I'm
want to
gonna
blow
play-
in there?
No, never do that. Never do that.
Oh, always blow in there.
And I'm going to play the original cart as opposed to just emulating it. And that's just
Yeah,
mindset
I totally
on how
get
I
that.
do that stuff.
Yeah.
See, nostalgia.
Nostalgia, exactly.
That's the
Are
full
you
still
going
have
to
my
sit on the
child-
floor crisscross
I still have my
applesauce style,
childhood
too?
NES, and I still play games on it.
I feel that a flash card in an NES connected to a tube TV is enough nostalgia for me. Like, I don't need to take that extra step of like getting the actual game. And even so, like for like Bionic Commando, for instance, like I have the cartridge, but I kind of want to like preserve that as best as possible. So I'd rather just play it on the flash card. than
I
put the
totally get
actual
it. I
game
mean,
in
flash cards do give you that convenience factor. If what the flash card you have enables you to like return to the menu with just
Yeah,
a button combination or something like that, so you don't even have to get up and reset it.
Right.
You know, like I totally get all that.
But it's funny, if I'm gonna like do research for a podcast, for instance, I will just fire it up in an emulator. Like I don't need even if it's like Bionic Commando, for instance, I'll fire up an emulator just because I'm not playing it for that nostalgic factor.
Right.
I'm playing it just to see a particular thing about it or to get some information from it. So it's weird how like I compartmentalize how I play depending on what I want to get from that game. So, and I have like 3 billion ways to play every game at this
exactly.
point. So
I think my gaming attention, and I know it to be so fleeting when I'm gonna sit down and play like older regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis games, that the emulator allows me to be like, that was a fun 3.5 minutes of this game. I'm gonna play every Sonic game on Genesis. Great. Okay, I'll play like the first 2 levels of this. I'll play through the, and
Yeah.
I'm like, that's enough.
yeah.
We
Like-
did that the other day. It was like, well, not like the other day. It was a few weeks ago, a month ago or so.
Which game?
We just went through a whole list of old, terrible games. We were like, what the heck is this game? I don't know. Let's put it on. It was some emulator you had. God.
Oh, God, I don't even remember that. But I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Flashback, I'll play like the first 2 levels and turn it off.
But the likelihood that I would take out my Genesis 3 and plug it in,
Yeah.
and put the, I'm like, no, I'm like, that barrier to putting it in is like, I'm not gonna play this.
Right. Or you want to show your kids, this is how we did it back in the 80s and 90s. And they're going to be like, why
Back
don't you
in
just
my
turn the
day.
computer on?
I know. Half the time they're like, is this an ad? Can you skip the ad? I'm like, no, it's not an ad, and I can't skip it. They always try to push the TV. I'm like, no, that's not.
It's not a
No.
touch screen.
I'll never forget the first time I played an NES game with Eddie. Eddie looks at the screen. We play it for like, we're playing like Mario or Contra or something. And he looks at me and goes, they didn't have a lot of colors when you were a kid. It's like, all right, shut up, go upstairs. All right, let's wrap up the show. Thank you guys for coming on. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to having Joe on next month. But This is great. I'm glad you can make it up. I'm glad we could figure the timing out.
Yeah, for sure.
At least as best as we could
Yeah.
to have some people on here.
Yeah.
And Mila, hang out with us more. You were a lot of fun. Thank
Thanks.
you. It was great. I'll tell you how bad you were after we stop recording.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear.
Anyways, I'd like to thank Jason Letourneau for the theme song as always, and all of our Patreon patrons. Without you guys, we would not be able to have this cool show, this cool podcast, all this cool equipment that we're using. So I'm not even sure what the next show is coming up. It hasn't been released as of this recording, but last episode, I will have been just released the Quake series. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and take a listen to it. A lot of cool industrial rock, some cinematic stuff, a lot of information on the composers and stuff. So check it out. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks with another VGMbassy. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.